Little mini screencast for chapter 1, learning about the body cavities. Although, of course, we have a cranial and vertebral cavity. It's not shown in this picture, but of course the brain is contained within the cranial cavity, and then the spinal cord is contained within the vertebral or vertebral cavity. In this picture, we're really focusing on the anterior cavities, which include the thoracic cavity, shown in purple, the diaphragm, which is a muscle, a thin, bowl-shaped muscle that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity below, and then the abdominopelvic cavity. There's no bright line, no muscle or membrane dividing the pelvic and abdominal cavities, so unless we're specifying, we should refer to it as the abdominopelvic cavity because it's really one large cavity. There's also this strange little cavity called the mediastinum, and it divides the thoracic cavity. The great vessels like the aorta and the superior vena cava are passing through that space, the mediastinum. And then the heart is contained within its own pericardial cavity. These cavities are lined with what we call serous membranes. Serous membranes are really slippery, smooth, almost like lubricated plastic wrap. And the best way to visualize these serous membranes is to imagine if you had a balloon full of water and that you pushed your fist down and surrounded it by that balloon. We would see that now we have a double layered membrane with fluid in between surrounding the organ. And that's exactly what we see surrounding the heart. We call it the pericardium. When we surround the lungs, it's called the pleura. And when it surrounds the guts and the intestines, we call it the peritoneum. Each of these has two layers. An organ layer, the layer which comes into direct contact with the organ, is called the visceral layer. And then the outer layer, which comes in contact with the cavity wall, whether this is the thoracic cavity like the rib cage, or the abdominal wall like the transverse abdominis muscle. In either case, we refer to that outer layer as the parietal layer. The cavity between the two membranes is filled with a slippery fluid that really decreases friction and may provide a little bit of a cushion. So here we can see three specific serous membranes. The pericardium, which literally translates as the stuff surrounding the heart. And then the pleura, which is the double-walled membrane surrounding the lungs, which allows for a full expansion of the lungs. And then the peritoneum, and we can see here in this mid-sagittal section of the body, here's the pubic bone, we can see rectum and urinary bladder down below. Here's diaphragm, we can see the liver and the lungs, and then these cross sections through the intestines give us the sense that the intestines are supported and surrounded by these mesenteries, and then encased within the peritoneal tissues, visceral and parietal peritoneum. That's it for chapter 1. I'll see you back for chapter 2.